Hello and welcome to the 12th episode of Dystopedia. I'm your host Matt Davidson. Once again, I'm joined by my colleague Andrew Hodgson.
How are you, Matt?
Yeah, pretty good. Andrew, yourself?
Yeah, pretty good.
I'll just let the listeners know, I just got back from my holiday, so I'm nice and relaxed, had a great time.
Yeah, where did you go?
Oh, I went to Hamilton Island, so a lot of snorkeling, a lot of jet skiing, things like that, so very tropical holiday, so it was really good.
What was the first day at work?
Jeez. It takes your brain like a good half day to get used to what you do. Like, even though I was only gone for 4 days, but when you go to that holiday mode, you switch off. So then it takes such a while to get back into the swing of things.
Are you the type? Because this is what I'm like. Certainly now, in the last 4 to 5 or 6 years, the minute I go on holiday, I'm already thinking about how shit it's going to be when I get back. I don't know if that's just where my head's at, but what are you?
It depends on the circumstances. I'm coming back on like a Monday and I have to be in the office like first thing Monday morning. Then it definitely hits. But if I'm lucky with my work, I can work 50% from home, 50% in the office. So if it's at home, it kind of takes the edge off it a bit more relaxing. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't really have to be 100% on at home, do you?
No.
Oh, yeah, you do. In case anyone from work's listening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I'm always on. Yeah. No, but it's a bit more like at least you don't have to get up earlier and dress like wear the office attire and stuff. You can kind of just be more chilled at home.
It's that shit, isn't it? With work, it's not the actual work. It's the monotonous stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's getting in the car and driving there, or getting on public transport, and that takes an hour out of your day each way, and things like that. So at least at home,
First world problems, eh?
It is. We do it tough here, don't we?
We do in the trenches.
Yeah, especially with things going around the world. Yeah, we're really struggling, aren't we?
Yeah.
Oh, well, on last week's episode, we went through the world of Escape from New York. So that was with old Kurt Russell. So that was a great little adventures going through that. And
yeah, I got in trouble for calling him Kurt Daddy too much. So,
oh, did you?
Yeah. I think I might have called him Kurt Daddy too much, but...
I noticed too, we mentioned a lot, we questioned the plot a lot, didn't we? We don't question it. Yeah, we you could have a drinking game out of that, I could tell. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, in this episode, we're going a bit, like it has like some, like, I won't say silliness to it, but it has like, it's not like raw and like something like Children of Men, but Battle Royale, like, where it's a bit more dark and dystopian in a way than Escape from New York, I'd say.
Yeah, it is. I reckon the only similarity between this and Escape from New York is probably the collar.
Oh, that's true. Thing. Yeah, it was slowed. Yeah.
That's really it. Yeah, there's certainly more depth to this, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like a lot of... It's funny, when I first watched it, it's a bit jarring at first, I'd say. Like, there's a lot to take in. You don't know where it's going. It's a bit... like you get the basic premise of it, but then... when you watch it a second time around, you start to notice little things in the background, little details here and there, and then having doing a bit of research, understanding why it went that direction or why that was planted here and there.
Yeah, understanding it with the context of research and what Japan was like at the turn of the century and that, I really enjoyed watching it the second time. I'm exactly the same as you. That first time, I was sort of a bit like Akira, to be honest with you. When I first watched that, I mean, I was hungover as well. Liverpool won the league. So they've won the league 20th time. We're back on our fucking perch. Thank you very much. Sorry, I don't know if our listeners are going to
understand. That's all
understand,
but
there we are.
Yeah.
But I was, Monday morning, I was an absolute mess. But so I ended up watching the movie that night.
I can't imagine it watching under those conditions.
Yes.
I was sober when I watched it, and I still was a bit like, what's going on here? Or did I make a mistake by picking this one? Or it was a bit like that. So it was good too, because we both went in blind to this one. Like as I said in the last episode, I heard about this movie on the grapevine during when Squid Games took off, and the people were saying, "Oh, it was inspired by this and very similar to this 2000 Japanese movie." And then when you do read like the critical reception and Quentin Tarantino was inspired by it, and all these other directors and other themes and other media that was spawned as inspiration from it. So I was like, "Oh, this seems like really cool concept and idea." But yeah, as I said, the first time you watch it, it's a bit like the grotesque violence of it all. I can imagine how controversial it would have been when it came out.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's just the way movies are now. That I watching it, it's the violence and it's nothing now, right? But
yeah, it is. It's funny. You think too. This came out before the Saw times, right?
Yes.
Where all the Saw movies were so like really messed up and gory, and think of the most sadistic ways to kill people, and then you hear every sound and blood spurt and stuff. Where I guess back then it wasn't a bit more sanitized, wasn't it? Yeah, then.
I suppose we're kind of desensitized to it now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, where we appreciate the I guess the realness of everything these days and the attention to detail. Where I guess back then it was, I guess we went to movies to escape more. You're coming out of that 90s blockbuster culture and you didn't really question the plot like we do now,
No, exactly. Yeah.
So as we've probably said a few times in quite a few episodes, it was really a less cynical time, wasn't it?
Oh, it was definitely.
Yeah. So that the effects of this would have been quite jarring to people, I gather. So
Yeah, and doing this, we said before, a bit of research on it too. Like, it never got a release in the West, like officially in the West. And the rumor was because it was banned, but actually it never was. It never was officially banned from the US, but it had a lot of trouble in Japan getting released because they considered it very grotesque and violent, and like would encourage. It was around that time too where our video games making kids violent.
I can remember that.
Yeah, movies as well. Japan had the same issue as well. So,
but the 90s was actually there was a rise of juvenile violence in Japan as well, wasn't there?
That too. Yeah, that was a big bang of fear.
Kobe child murders.
Yeah, that was in '97, I think. 97,
yeah, there was a few incidences. There was a lot of sensationalist media coverage, as it seems to always be, that was sort of hyping it up a little bit.
Just on that Kobe one, what was interesting about that one was that because it was a kid that he killed 2 school students or something, or he killed a toddler and then he killed a student. And everyone thought it was obviously some maniac serial killer or something.
Because he wrote notes, didn't he?
He wrote notes and stuff like that. And then ended up being, like a 14-year-old kid. And they were all completely shocked by it. And it just changed the whole... it was kind of like saying, like, the kid was actually pretty normal until this point. So what caused this? And then all that some media moral panic happened.
Well, I think he was like a grade A student. There was no problems, no nothing. But it was, as we'll get into no doubt later, there's a lot of disillusionment, a lot of breaking away from old Japanese values and... the collapse, the bubble collapsing in 1989, so that lost decade.
Yeah.
And I guess it was just that mixed with like a lot of the stress put on children, school culture, work culture, get a job, get a good job, work for life. And I think a few of them just snapped. So some of them turned to violence. I guess some of them turned to, suicide rates, probably the highest in the world there, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Drugs and alcohol too.
Yeah. Or a lot of them just went into, you heard of the term, what was it? Is it hikikomori? The hermits?
Oh yeah, hikikomori. Yeah, I've heard of that.
A lot of them. There's apparently 1.7 million or so today in Japan. But this, I think, hikikomori, I believe it's called, came into public consciousness around 1998. So people literally kids coming out of university or coming out of school just disillusioned that a lot of these opportunities because of the I guess what was happening with the economy at the time. Their response was to just. There was this deep shame that they couldn't be like their parents or the opportunities went, and it wasn't necessarily their fault, but that was their response. They became hermits, and it's quite.
Yeah, there's a couple of YouTube videos. I recommend anyone having a look at them. Like the lifestyle of them, it's very they don't talk to people, they don't associate with anyone. Like they'll literally won't leave their house for 3 months at a time or something like that. Yeah, only time they go out is to get maybe essentials or something. That's about it.
Yeah, it's like a it comes from this place of deep shame where I guess. That's where I think seeing this movie the second time around, learning about these subcultures in Japan and what was going on, be it 70s, 80s, 90s, for all this time, I guess that's why I appreciated it more. You kind of see the whole game, Battle Royale, as an allegory for Japan at that time.
Yeah, exactly.
The opportunities, one person survives, there's no opportunities, and everyone's fighting and for that one chance, nobody starts as equal, nobody gets the same footing. It's like that. That's where I appreciated that second time round, but only with doing the research for this,
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's called, it's especially in the 90s too, in the classrooms, when the classrooms were taught in a very much disciplinary, I think it's called ijimi. I think it's called bullying basically in Japan, where it's you do your tests, you sit up straight at the table, you're in the classroom roll call area. It's all very regimented and they beat out any kind of creativity and freedom in people. Especially when you remember being a teenager too, you kind of wanted to explore your own way and go your own way in life in some ways, and people feel like they're being trapped and shackled in a way. They're going to lash out, aren't they? So,
as I say, particularly if there's that promise of you look at the I guess if you look at these Japanese cultural foundations, which we see, there's that group conformity is prioritized over individuality. There's perfectionism. There's loyalty, hierarchy, all these things are fine, but there's that promise of when the opportunities aren't there anymore, when they always say work hard or study hard and you'll get a good life, good job, and you'll these traditional life paths, and suddenly those opportunities aren't there. Then you can kind of see the whole thing of they just say, oh, they're just being violent. The violence in 90s Japan at the time, it wasn't random, it wasn't for nothing, right?
Yeah, it's a reaction.
Yeah, I guess that's the problem, right? Everyone just reports on it happening, but nobody asks why it's happening. What are the things that have happened here that have made it happen? It's that.
I think another factor is that's when you think the 90s too, where probably mass media is getting at a pinnacle point where it's all these little attacks are being glamorized and becoming infamous, and then it's spreading more fear and more disconnection as well with parents and their children as well. So you can really see that factor playing in it as well.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the whole parents. Oh, is it video games? Is it like I can remember that thinking.
Yeah, I remember that as a kid too. Yeah,
games being banned because you're thinking that it's making kids go out and kill people. In fact, it's probably the opposite. It's probably more cathartic than anything. But
yeah, I can see how someone. It depends on the situation, right? I guess if someone's already born bad or whatever it is, they're going to commit this act. They can use the video game as like a training simulation, for example. I can see that argument there. But when you're saying he was a completely normal kid, then popped in Grand Theft Auto, and then he became a serial killer, what I mean? That's where it's just like, no,
come on, mate.
Yeah, you're just talking shit then, It's just, that's where it felt like it was a bit like that when we were growing up, where it's they're turning our kids into delinquents and becoming juvenile and stuff like that. So another thing doing on the research of the, I became really fascinated with the director, Kinji Fukusaki. He, at the time, this was actually ended up being his last film he ever made, because he was making Battle Royale 2 and filmed, I think, one scene, but then unfortunately he passed away from cancer in 2003.
Yeah, he got prostate cancer, hadn't he?
Got prostate, yeah. And then his son took over and finished the second film. And apparently it's got mixed reviews from what I've seen. So we might go into that to a future episode, I know, down the track. But yeah, he grew up in, he was around 14, 15 when his classroom was uplifted and he had to go work in a munitions factory during World War II. And he recalls the tale of, Tokyo was getting bombed all the time, and he was having to duck for cover a lot of times. But then when the US got closer to the shores, from the naval vessels, they started bombarding the shore, the coastline, and hitting the factories and stuff. There was nowhere you could hide, right? Because at least with an air raid shelter, it gives you that bit of time to prepare. But when you're being fired from a naval ship, it just hits you suddenly, right? So
yeah, he
describes being in the munitions factory and seeing all these class, they always dropped where they were, and then
I think he was saying they're all just hiding behind, using themselves as shields.
Basically. Yeah, they were basically because it was just a reaction, right? So then it got absolutely obliterated. Then they were forced to pick up dead body parts of their classmates and other people around. He recalls picking up arms and legs, and I mean, you can imagine how traumatic that would have been for a 15-year-old to see that.
Yeah, I've actually got a quote. Have you seen the quote that he?
Yeah, just go ahead.
Yeah, I've got a quote here. He said, as I lifted severed arms and legs, I had a fundamental awakening. Everything we'd been taught in school about how Japan was fighting the war to win world peace was a pack of lies. Yeah, he actually goes on. I've got a bit of another one here, and in terms of the movie and why he decided to do it, he says that the emotions I experienced then, an irrational hatred for the unseen forces that drove us into those circumstances, a poisonous hostility towards adults, and a gentle sentimentality for my friends, were a starting point for everything since. This is why when I hear reports about recent outbreaks of teenage violence and crimes, I cannot easily judge or dismiss them. This is the whole point of departure for all my films. So it makes sense in the context of Battle Royale, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because you, from the surface, you'd think, why is this 70-year-old director picking up a film it's meant to be written by, wasn't he written by a journalist? Wasn't the actual book itself?
Yes, and I think he was
very young at the time too.
He was born in Koshun Takami was his name. Yeah, so born in 1969. So he would have been. I think the novel came out in 99. So he would have been 30. Yeah,
and he was in that from that kind of that in between generation, right? Yeah, as opposed to the youth at the time.
Yes.
Yeah, so he grew up under the prosperity generation too, but then he was probably seeing the youth crime and disillusionment from everything too.
Well, he would have come at a time of I guess the 60s and 70s was a time of activism and change in Japan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I guess there were the AMPO protests with the US-Japan Security Treaty.
Yeah, that's right.
Have you seen that where a lot of people just, I guess the US being there, they didn't quite like, and it was a kind of a reminder of, what had happened before, and they were getting pulled into wars. And I think even in the 60s there was... they were using US were using bases in Japan, so they were kind of inadvertently supporting Vietnam Wars, and there was fear of being dragged into other conflicts when they just wanted to just forget about it and just move on,
be autonomous basically.
Yeah. And I guess a reliance on America for their economy. But sorry, go on.
But with Kinji himself, the director, you said he after he finished after he experienced that horrific tragedy and things like that, he went on to film school, and then he became known as a director to do he kind of with the Yakuza series he made in the mid-70s.
So gangster flicks.
And he kind He's kind of like the Godfather for Japan series
Okay.
film. Yeah, so he became renowned for that. And then, yeah, he did a World War II movie called Tora, 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 which was half filmed in America and then half filmed in Japan. And it was like each general's and politicians' perspectives.
That's
and they
amazing,
combined it.
isn't it?
Yeah, it seems like a really interesting watch. And currently it got mixed reviews because it was very historically accurate, but it wasn't like a gripping tale as it is in like came across more like a documentary as opposed to a proper film.
Isn't that funny? Historically accurate.
Fine balance, right?
Yeah. Historically accurate probably could not have the old gripping tale, could it? Because it'd take all that Hollywood out of it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But on that, like Tora, 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 that is a movie I always hear of. Whenever you watch these sort of lists on YouTube or something in the most realistic war movies, I think that's always number one.
Okay, yeah. We'll have to check it out and see what it's like. And yeah, because I'm very fascinated because he's definitely directed to. He wasn't afraid to go out of his lane, so he got known to being like Yakuza kind of films, like gangsters and stuff. But then whatever intrigued him, he went that direction. And it seems like if the theme of the film could invoke something that he wanted to give a message to like the next generation, he'd go for it and then show it in a real gripping and I guess brutal way, like realistic, like grim reality kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you got to respect that. Yeah, there's a lot of these directors that just stick to their lane and stay where it's safe. But I mean, I love Danny Boyle for the same reason.
Yeah.
A bit like Michael Bay, could you say? Or...
Yeah, a bit like that. Yeah.
Sorry, we had to give him a nod because he gets a nod in every other episode.
Well, it's one of those things too. I do mind when directors go out of their lane, but then sometimes they don't have the talent to do it. But he has the talent to do it. It feels like, and he knows how to get the best out of his actors too when they're in there. So another thing too is with it being his like last film as well. Like it's kind of like his most famous film now, isn't it? Like this Battle Royale. So it's kind of like his what's it called?
What is it? Magnus.
Yeah.
What are they called? Magnus Opus.
Yeah,
Magnus Opus. I think.
Yeah. That's kind of like his final one. So, and yeah, like he's inspired too. Like a lot of famous Western directors. Like most famous example is Quentin Tarantino. And he was and it's funny watching it. I'm like, I can see the references, like the
you can see it all over.
You can see the grotesque violence that he uses in like Kill Bill and Inglourious Basterds. You can tell it's definitely inspired by that. And he used some of the actors from Battle Royale in Kill Bill.
Yeah. She played what was her name? She played Go-Go, didn't she?
Go-Go, yeah, and had wearing the same colours as well, like same attire, like the yellow.
Yeah. That's right. I've got a name here somewhere. Shiaki Kuriyama was her name.
Yeah,
because
Yeah, she had. I thought she'd have more of a prominent role in Battle Royale, but she's kind of a bit of an aside. Yeah,
I wonder what it was that stuck out to him. That.
No, it's interesting because I think the greatest character is I think Miss Suo. She was very good character in the film.
Yeah, there's a bit of. I thought it was very clever. No, that we'll get into later, but it was clever in the sense you were showing her adapting, surviving, a bit crazy, but I guess towards you see her backstory, right? She was abused as a child. It was like quite.
It made sense, yeah.
It makes sense. Like after you're like, shit. It did a really good job of like developing the character after she died. You're like, actually. I kind of felt sorry for her now. Like,
yeah, it is like that. Yeah, you think you think she's just some crazy chick just running around, just killing people for the thrill of it. It's actually no, it's just a survival instinct.
Yeah.
Mm.
And the movie does that well in the sense that there's a lot of these kids just come in with like their past trauma and everything, don't they? It really certainly would have been. I think this movie coming out when it did, with all the things going on, the lost decade and juvenile crime in the 90s, and a lot of these kids, I guess the post-industrial Japan, it sort of moved over to the service industry. I think they moved over from, I think in 1994 there were more service jobs than manufacturing jobs, so it had really changed from like, a lot of Japan was known for manufacturing. Well, it still is, but not to the extent. There's more service jobs now, so a lot of, I think, unemployment would have reached like 10% or something. So a lot of these kids' parents a lot of the parents you see in this movie, it would have been a little too close to home for a lot of kids, I reckon.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think what I didn't realize too, apparently in Japan, especially in the 90s, you had to pay school tuition. Yeah. So that you imagine the financial burden trying to put kids through school and the stress
especially
of the parents.
with that culture, that like study hard and get a good job.
Get a job, got to better yourself, and then getting out there in the real world and can't find your place. You can see why.
Yeah, your opportunity's gone. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Well, and that's one of those, what sets the tone for the film straight up is when you see Shinra's the main character, like the opening scene there with his father. You're just like, oh my god, like, it doesn't hide anything from you. You actually see it there,
straight into it.
Like, wow, yeah. So, well, I guess on that note, we should probably get into the plot. What do you reckon?
Yeah, we probably should because we've already spoken about a couple of scenes in it.
So
let's go. Following a recession, a totalitarian Japanese government passes an act to curb juvenile delinquency by selecting a junior high school class at random to participate in a yearly game called Battle Royale. Junior high schooler Shuya Nanahara struggles to process his father's suicide. His friend Yoshitoki Kuninobu stabs their teacher Kitano, who subsequently resigns. Shuya's classmate Noriko Nakagawa secretly keeps Kuninobu's knife. 1 year later, Shuya's class fall asleep on a school bus, having been gassed, and awaken on a remote island. Kitano explains that they were chosen to participate in the annual Battle Royale. They have 3 days to fight to the death until a victor emerges. Explosive collars will kill uncooperative students or those within prohibited areas. Each student is provided rations, a map, supplies, and a random weapon. Kitano then kills 2 of the students, including Kuninobu. 12 students die within the first 6 hours, all by suicide. Mysterious abused loner Mitsuko Suma and brutal high schooler Kazuo Kiriyama become the most ruthless players. Transfer student Shogo Kawada spares Shuya after killing 1 student, while Shuya accidentally kills another. Basketball player Shinji Mimura recruits others to help him hack into the computer system to disrupt the program. Amid shifting loyalties and violent confrontations, Shuya promises to keep Noriko safe, as Kuninobu had feelings for her. They are eventually rescued by Kawada, who reveals that he won a previous Battle Royale at the cost of his girlfriend, who sacrificed herself when they were the final 2 remaining. He volunteered for the current Battle Royale game to avenge her by winning and killing those in charge. Kiriyama eventually attacks and wounds Shuya with his Uzi, but Shuya is saved by Sujimura. Shuya awakens on the island's lighthouse, bandaged by Yuki Utsumi. 5 other girls are hiding there, having made a pact not to participate in the game. Yuko Sasaki, having witnessed Shuya accidentally kill Tatsumichi Oki, attempts to poison his food. However, another girl, Yuka, eats it, leading to a confrontation between the group, which results in a shootout. All but Yuko are killed. Guilt-ridden, she jumps to her death. Shuya reunites with Noriko and Kawada, and the trio sets out to find Mimura. Later, Sujimura is killed by Kotohiri, and he professes his love for her before he dies. Mitsuko kills her, and in a flashback is shown to have a traumatic, abusive childhood. Back in the present, she is killed by Kiriyama. Mimura and 2 others successfully infiltrate the computer system, which Kitano manually resets. Kiriyama arrives and kills them, but Mimura uses his homemade bomb to blow up the base, injuring and blinding Kiriyama. When the trio arrives at the base, Kawada engages in a shootout with Kiriyama. Kiriyama's Uzi injures Kawada, while Kawada manages to detonate Kiriyama's collar. On the final day, the trio awakens on the shore. Kawada, aware of the collar's internal microphones, feigns killing Shuya and Noriko. Believing Kawada has won, Kitano brings him to the base, but realizes that Kawada hacked the system months beforehand and had disabled Shuya and Noriko's tracking devices. Shuya and Noriko enter the control room, and Kitano unveils a painting of the massacred class, depicting Noriko as the victor. He explains that he was unable to bear the hostility from his students, having been rejected by his own daughter, and that because Noriko never disrespected him, he views her as a daughter. He asks her to kill him, but Shuya shoots him after he threatens them. After a final phone conversation with his daughter, Kitano succumbs to his wounds. The trio leaves the island on a boat, but Kawada dies from his injuries. Sometime later, Noriko gives Shuya the knife that Kuninobu had used to injure Kitano. Shuya and Noriko are declared fugitives by the Japanese government, last seen on the run toward Shibuya Station. In an epilogue, Shuya dreams of Kuninobu, who tells him to move on with his life and that everything will be okay. Noriko reflects on the time she met Kitano for ice cream after the knife attack. When she tells him she has a Kanenobu's knife in her possession, Kitano responds, "In this moment, what should an adult say to a kid?"
Yeah, well, there you go. It's quite the journey it takes you on. And as we said earlier, like the first time you watch it, there's a lot to take in, and a lot of, I guess at first it's the grotesque violence initially, right? And the sadistic ways people are killed, and different formats as well. Like some by poisoning, some by Uzi gunfire, others by suicide, or having their throat slit. But then when you watch it again and go through it, and then you see like the little plot devices, little where it's going to, what it's trying to say. It's a great film.
Yeah, it is. It is. There's a lot more depth than I originally thought. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of it. I don't think I completely understand, and possibly never will. Certainly. But I think that's probably because of possibly the language barrier. When you're reading subtitles, and it can probably never come across as probably it was meant to. As a Japanese person would probably get it a lot more than say I would. In that sense.
And also too, they communicate differently to how we communicate too. So sometimes we think they're being over dramatic or undramatic, then we think it doesn't fit the tone. But then it's this different culture, right? So
yeah.
But I think overall it comes across pretty well. You can understand the characters and what their grievances are and what they're trying to get out of it, or how they're trying to survive and stuff. So
I can see why it's called a masterpiece. Like, it's his masterpiece, because only having read, I guess, what the society would have been like at the time and seeing it, I just think whether it meant to or not, it was like it just hit right at the right time, didn't it? It could have been no better time to release this movie.
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of like puts up like a bit of a mirror to like this, this is what happens if you go down these paths, right? It can get to this horrendous stage where people killing each other for the sake of a reunified Japan or something. It's a bit weird, like the way it was going about it, but and just the blaming youth for everything and trying to like weed them out and stuff. Like, it's very morbid that way, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Look, there's a couple of and we'll go scene by scene, but there's a couple of things in it that a couple of plot holes. One of the biggest glaring ones for me is like, why it talks about in the book, and it talks about in the I guess in the plot for the movie too, about like this alternate Second World War. So Japan supposedly won this alternate Second World War. So obviously we know Japan, ultra military. If we're talking about Japan in our timeline in the Second World, it's ultra militaristic society.
Oh yeah.
How are kids now suddenly so far out of control? Like in this world, like I find it a bit like, so how have you let them get here? We see in these sort of fascist societies that
it's normally beaten out by then too.
Yeah. But if he's like mirroring the time, and again, it's that thing of like passing this law and blaming kids for it, but not actually looking at the problem.
Well, one other kind of plot hole I kind of had too was, well, how did the kids not know about Battle Royale? Because there's mass media there. Like, the start of the movie literally shows like the previous year's winner, right? The little girl holding the teddy bear, and she's like smiling with like blood in her face.
Yeah.
And then
iconic.
And then you're seeing like the Japanese are probably going, it's a girl, blah blah blah. She's made it, and she's the winner of this year's Battle Royale. How great is this? And the flashing cameras and lights and everything. But then wouldn't that go out to the mass media and the kids would have seen it?
Well, I guess. Look, I read. I wanted to, because it was the novel. I wanted to read a little bit of the book just to get a bit of an understanding of. Yeah,
I've heard people say like the book goes a lot more in depth with like obviously backstory characters and stuff.
And naturally, it's a book, right?
Yeah,
you can. And as I've discussed before, this assumes you've probably read the book, which I've got to respect that. But yeah, look, I read just the introduction just to give a bit of an understanding about Japan and what was going on. Basically, in the novel, it's established that Japan did not lose the war in the Second World War, but they're now basically they've been renamed the Republic of Greater East Asia. So obviously their imperialistic dreams were realized and
encompassing more
so
territory.
That's probably right. So they've sort of they've become a totalitarian militaristic dictatorship. They tightly control the population through fear, all that sort of thing. So that in that sense, I'm like, so how are these kids suddenly so far out of control? Then I just
yeah.
Anyway, look, it's mirroring what was going on in society at the time. But one thing that I wanted to touch on, like, and I read that, I'm like there's no conceivable way, certainly in my research and my understanding of history, that Japan could have ever won the Second World War. I mean,
exactly.
I personally, I think their fate was sealed the minute they bombed Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, that was.
They woke a sleeping dragon. But I don't know. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I don't like. I like the concept of it, but I don't like the way it went about. Like, as in saying that they won Second World War, because it's just. Yeah, like it was even hard, like when we did the Wolfenstein episode, believing that Germany could win. It's just like it doesn't happen. It wouldn't happen.
But you could probably believe that a little bit more. With Germany, in the sense had possibly Operation Barbarossa gone to plan. Essentially,
I don't think they would have won, but I think the war could have come to a stalemate, right, or something, or they would have had their territories and then they called a truce or whatever. But but with Japan too, because they had the reason why they were so expansionist is because they had no raw materials, right? That's why they're looking for
embargoes and
so. And that's why it got pushed to that point where they felt like they had from their point of view, they had no choice but to attack America, right? Back in World War II in Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, I think the only way they could conceivably have won or been on the winning side is if they just avoided war with the US at all costs, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
happening.
I mean, you could argue there was a lot of the aircraft carriers and that were actually out of Pearl Harbor on the day.
Yeah, they were a bit unlucky actually.
They've been unlucky. So had they have maybe got all of them, and it maybe would have given them a bit more time to expand and get a bit of a head start.
Still, I don't think so.
You ever work on a sleeping dragon? What we saw from the US after, I honestly don't think they had a chance.
They Hitler and I think Japan thought too. America were like a nation. They were a cared about, the finer things in life, having, with war in 20s and stuff. They thought America was like that. They didn't think they had this tough undertone to it where it was pushed against, back against the wall, or it was personally attacked, that they would fight back like the way it did, and with ferocity.
They underestimated their resolve.
Exactly,
yeah,
so,
because of the isolationist and
They're like a pleasure-loving kind of country, like the finer things in life.
Yeah, so no, it's a cool talking point. Like, I always love these things, these alternate histories. It's
fascinating.
History's the best, right? But yeah, there's this. I don't know. I guess just avoiding war with the US at all costs. Probably something may have happened, but you're probably relying on what happened with Germany, and that's probably doomed from the start too, really, with the ideological blindness. But anyway,
exactly, But it's a fascinating concept, and I guess, it's interesting to see. It would have been, like we always say, we want to explore more. It'd be cool to see, like, the world map, what it looked like how would this new East Asia, sorry, it was called?
Republic of Greater East Asia.
Greater Asia, yeah. So interesting how it would operate, and what's left of Europe and America now. Like, what would it be?
Yeah, it actually mentions in that first intro that it talks about the US being a enemy state, but they're getting in, like, I can't remember what brand they spoke of, but a brand of shoes. So they're obviously contrabands getting into the country, and there's a little bit of American culture getting in there. In that that scene we see on the bus, it's just the depth that it's going in. Just with a couple of sentences, you're like, oh, cool. It's layering the world.
Yeah.
So I will read it.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll explore it down the track too if we both read the book. But I guess we'll get back into the plot then. So I think, as I said earlier too, like the opening scene is like, I love to. It has all this classical music in it too, like the old-fashioned class. It's really a juxtaposition of like this ultra brutality going on, but then has something like Beethoven in the background or something. Yeah,
it probably shows like maybe it's trying to get across the clinical nature of it.
Yeah, the clinical part of it. Yeah, and it's how it's like so normalized as well.
Yeah,
but as I said earlier, like it starts off with they're talking about the annual Battle Royale happens, and the winner is. Or like Japan's unemployment's gone through the roof. What
does it say? Dawn of the millennium, the nation collapsed. 15% unemployment, 10 million out of work, which is actually funny because in reality it was 10. I think by about 99, 2000 was 10% out of work.
Wow,
so it wasn't far off.
Close,
yeah. 800,000 pupils boycotted school, and juvenile crime rate soared. Adults had lost all confidence. Now fearing youth, they passed the law. And the law they passed was the BR Act.
The BR Act, yep.
Or they call it, I think, technically it's called the Millennium Educational Reform Act, a.k.a. the BR Act.
The Act, yep, exactly.
Which is Battle Royale.
Yep. And it's not, I love it too, it's got those cut scenes with the graphics, and then also like the island ocean in the background, waves smashing against the rocks and stuff. And then it gets to the part two where the media's gathering around the car with the winner of the previous year's Battle Royale, and they're all hyper excited, and oh my god, it's a young girl, isn't it? Yeah, wow, blah blah blah. Then we cut to the scene too, where we see like a picture of the school, like the classroom, like the school photo.
Yeah, so obviously that's a school that's been selected now, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's 9A or B, I think it is.
Yeah, and they say it's out of about 43,000 classes, selected at random.
Selected at random, yeah. And but then I think we touched on earlier too, like the opening scene is literally, I'm going to butcher his name, sorry, Shura Nahara. Yes, Shuro, isn't it?
Shuya Nanahara.
Nanahara, my apologies, yep. And he walks into his home, and it's like his first day back from school in 7th grade.
I think his first day, year 7, yeah.
Yeah, and then he finds his dad, like, has hung himself with an electrical cable in the house. You're just like, whoa.
I don't think the movie's not been on for 5 minutes. You're like,
you're like,
here we go.
He throws you straight into it, like right in the deep end. Like, imagine like being, 12 or 13 and coming home and finding your dad just, this would be brutal. It'd be so, like, traumatic, right?
Yeah, and as I say, I think it would have been a little bit too close to home for a lot of people at this time when the movie came out, No,
definitely, yeah. And then I can't remember, what was it on the note? He wrote something to his son, like it was like,
I think he says, go for it.
Go for it, yeah. Something, go for it, yeah. It's very, very weird. We see later on there's like a flashback to like the
When
night
having dinner,
and his dad couldn't afford to pay for the meal.
Oh, he's just talking. Nobody's getting back to him, and he feels
downtrodden,
and the waiter's not listening to him. He
he loses his shit. Yeah,
he loses his shit. He just feels disillusioned, I guess. You know.
Yeah, and he's at his wit's end, right? So,
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of sets the scene, and then well, she like obviously throws up, and then we cut to the school at the school there, right? And the teacher's not getting any respect basically, and they're going through it all, and then the student Kenobu then stabs Kirano, the teacher.
Yeah, that was crazy. That came out of nowhere as well in the film. But what I do want to say, actually, in doing the research for this, there was a we already talked about the soaring juvenile crime rates in the 90s. There was a 1998 survey, so apparently teachers had experienced what they would call it's Gakyu Hokai, which literally means classroom collapse. That's what I love about the Japanese language. There's so many literals. You know the way they do it. Like they'll say something and this literally means this. Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It's perfect for researching.
Oh, it is.
But yeah, that was there was this phenomenon. So apparently, physical attacks by students increased by 20%.
Yeah.
So again, this is where we spoke about earlier. So blame was placed on like media, video games, or people were saying, "Oh, kids are coddled or they're mother too much." That's why.
They bring back hard discipline.
Yeah. And I think even in the year 2000, there was a juvenile law of 1947, and the year 2000, as a response, I think you could be trialed as an adult at the age of 16, I believe.
They brought it to 14.
They brought it to 14.
It's funny too because there was another. I was reading it too before that there was another murder in 2004, and it was a young girl killed a classmate because she was bullying her online or something like that, and when that happened, one of her things that she was a big fan of Battle Royale,
right?
The book and in the film, and then they even talked about bringing the age down from 14 to 12.
Wow!
But I don't think it went through. But yeah, it was showing that fear of like they should be tried in that way. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like now I think of when I saw that scene in the first time, like it was a bit like why has he stabbed him? It was just a bit
jarring, right?
Bit jarring, and then research and I watch it again, I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
That was so close to what was happening at the time, It
is, yeah.
Yeah.
And then because that it's kind of just random. We don't know who that student is, right? It just comes to us as the viewer, like, oh, the teacher's being randomly stabbed, and then he kind of just fades away. Then right, and then the girl, Noriko, picks up the knife and just keeps it for later, and then it becomes an important element down the track. But
and then Kitano, he sort of just the teacher, he kind of sort of almost shrugs it off and goes and washes his hands.
Yeah,
and I guess it's established that he quits, but yeah, that was like his final straw. It's just the way he sort of takes it in his stride, Yeah,
he takes it in his stride, and it's kind of like trying to say that this thing is so common that it's not even that big of a deal in a way, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's a bit jarring for the audience, but for him, it's just like, oh, I can't be expecting it, or it had it coming kind of way, like, yeah.
For like a fucking school shooting in America today, really.
Yeah, it is a bit like that.
Yeah.
Well, this movie came out around the Columbine massacre, so
actually, that's why it wasn't picked up in the US, wasn't it?
That was a big part of it too. Yeah,
that was 99.
That was 99. Yeah.
Yeah, so like nobody would touch it. Nobody would touch it with a 10-foot
pole.
pole.
Especially attention to like that too. Yeah. So because America had their own fear of things like that, like blaming things like South Park and Marilyn Manson for corrupting kids. So
yeah, it hasn't really got any better, has it?
No, it hasn't. But
South Park reference. We got it in.
Oh, we got it in. There we go.
That's good.
I wonder if there is a South Park episode dedicated to this movie. Maybe there could be, but maybe I haven't picked up the reference.
Possibly.
Yeah. We'll look that for another time.
I'll tell you what, there's a Shaun of the Dead reference. There's a reference in Shaun of the Dead to this movie, which I found out. There's a poster on the wall, which is really cool.
Yeah, like a little nod to it. That's funny.
Which they wouldn't have seen the movie at the time, because I think it was like held
back. They could have seen, there's a lot of bootlegs.
There would have been bootlegs.
Yeah, they would have seen it. But like still, well, that's the phenomenal thing about this film is that it got spread by word of mouth or on the old internet forums and people talking about it. Yeah,
and that's probably why the cult classic or the masterpiece, because the more and more you can't see it's banned. You want to see it more.
Yeah, it's like the Streisand effect, isn't it? Yeah, definitely is that.
Yeah.
So we flash forward to a year later, and they're going on a school bus trip, and they just think it's a normal excursion out. They're on the bus, they're having a laugh, they're joking around, and she,
it's Noriko,
she makes cookies or something, and he wants Nanahara to try them, and he comes close, and they get a photo taken, and then the mate's in the background too.
His best mate, what's his Kuninobu?
Kuninobu, he's in the background. And
I'd say Nanahara is a bit of a ladies' man in this film.
He is,
They've all got a crush on him.
Yeah, he's got that stoicness to him or something, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good on him.
Get in there, son.
Yeah, exactly. But then suddenly they go through that tunnel and
Well, what I find really that the way it builds is like they're all sort of being kids. You know, you're being lulled into this. You've seen this, you've seen the first 5 minutes where his dad's committed suicide. Like, Jesus Christ. And then they kind of like, it's the first time I guess you see them being kids and they're all on a school trip having a laugh. But then you start subtly seeing there's one of the carriers at the back. He looks and there's military checkpoints, and then a few seconds there's another military checkpoint, and it's almost like he's aware of something. But yeah, I thought that was amazing. As soon as that, like the way it transitioned when they went into the tunnel.
Yeah. And then they obviously get gas and they passed out, and then he
So Nanahara,
he wakes up. Yeah.
When I first saw it, I was thinking, oh, everyone's just asleep or something, you know, and he's awake, and then as he's sort of crawling, I'm like, here we go. Yeah. I thought it was very clever.
Then they cuts the scene where the hostess of the bus has got the mask on, and then the driver too.
That's creepy, isn't it? You know, when
so
they turn
creepy.
around. Yeah.
She just turns around and just walks at him, like no emotion, just like smacks him, knocks him out again. And then you're just like, oh, shit, what's going on here? It's a bit like, oh, it's getting a bit morbid now, a bit like, and something very sus now. Yeah, and then they wake up in this, you know, random island, in this like kind of like old schoolroom class, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, actually, funny enough, on that island, it interested me because I was watching something about where it was filmed. So it was filmed on an island called Hashijo Kojima. So it's an island off of Japan, but it's now a deserted island. I think at its peak, it's like 500 odd people that live there. But the population declined to 0 in 1969, so there was a lack of services, but obviously probably because of the lack of people and schooling and that. So it's
completely isolated, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's deserted. But apparently in the 17th and 18th century, it was used as like a prison for that island for serious criminals. So it was like, I guess probably like
to be a bit of a fitting setting, right?
Yeah, it is. So they were sort of what would you call it? Is banished the right word? I suppose banished. Banished to it. Strong currents kind of made the escape.
So it's isolated. Completely isolated. Yeah.
But yeah, it really mirrors Battle Royale, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, perfect place to film it too. Yeah.
It's just one of these places. Like I've got a love for. You know, I've told you before. I've been to Chernobyl, or I've been to. I want to go to places like Bikini, not because. You know, I guess I know there was nuclear testing there, but I've got this, you wouldn't call it dark tourism, I don't think, but I've got this love of like seeing places that off the beaten track that nature's taken back. I love to see that kind of, it's a place I'd love to go. I don't even know if you'd be able to get there, but just to see the old buildings would be really eerie, I think, you know? Yeah,
and they're all like decayed and stuff, and you see like tree roots growing out of the bottom of it and stuff.
Yeah, or just nature taking back. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe there's a tour we could do there one day.
Yeah, maybe. Let's organise it. But like, you see throughout the film too, where it's if you feel like maybe it was a set design, but it's actually no, it's old abandoned buildings.
Yeah, just added to it. Yeah.
And you can tell like it's like set. If the building was maybe finished in maybe like 50s or 60s, it had that vibe to it. So
yeah,
same with the classroom, but yeah. So we wake up in the students wake up in the classroom. They walked in like they're all confused. What's going on? They discover they got this weird thing on their neck, and then was it the military just run in suddenly, and then they see their old teacher come in, and he's like taking over like a normal classroom, and it's like, oh, hey, how you going, guys?
Yeah, it's a Year 7 teacher.
Yeah, how you going? Yeah, it's very it's very creepy in a way where it's like they're completely terrified in a weird setting, but then you try to make it like a normal classroom vibe to it.
Yeah, sadistic, right?
Very sadistic. Yeah. And then obviously they're all confused and not knowing what's going on. And then he explains that they've been the lucky ones selected to participate in this thing called the BR, and the BR is written on the board.
Yeah.
And we know then what it stands for, which is Battle Royale. And then we're also so he explains what's happened, and then we see two random students there. You know, in opposite ends of the corner. Yeah. So we got the guy with the crazy hair. What was he's the
actually, I think it's Kiriyama and Kawada.
Kiriyama and Kawada.
Yeah, the exchange students. Yeah.
Yeah, and they distinctively look older too.
Yes.
So then we're like thinking, okay, what's going on here? It's a bit strange, and then they try and flee or something at one stage, and then the army starts shooting the ground, pushing them down, like telling them take a seat, sit in your desk, blah blah blah. Yeah. So it's all a bit jarring for them and stuff. So
there's I guess with and then Kitano talks about, he's talking about, do you know what this law means? BR, he talks about why it was instated, but he basically blames the whole fate of the country on the youth.
Yeah.
This is why we had to do it. It's your fault.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then they're a bit like confused by all the rules and regulations. So then they decided to pop on that video. I think that video is like best sums up like the whole like sadistic side to it, where it's like it's like treated like some like demonstration video you'd see or something. Like,
Even the way they're the girl, like that whole
she's that really high pitched voice and and she's like wearing like modern clothing for like the 90s or something. Like you'd see it in like some like a video game like demonstration thing, like one of those Dance Dance Revolution things or something. It had that kind of thing to it. And then you're this class, here's your demonstration, blah blah blah. This is how it works. And so basically, it's the Battle Royale it's over 3 days. There can never be there don't have to be one survivor, and to make sure that people don't form cliques or band together. If a certain people, they then maneuver the zone, so you can't just go hang out in one area.
The exclusion zones.
Exclusion zones. So they come we find out then that they're wearing an electrical collar or has like an explosive device in it. So if it gets triggered, it will literally blow their heads off, basically.
Yeah. So only one winner, and if more people are alive at the end, then
everyone dies. Yeah. And then at that scene too, like a couple of kids are talking here and there and questioning things, and teachers are like telling them to shut up. And then one girl talks too much, and he picks out a knife and just throws it at her head, and just kills her instantly. You're just like, whoa, what the hell happened there?
He couldn't wait for the game, could he?
He was so Oh, that's right. And just before that, too, there's one point too. They're going, your current teacher wasn't on board with the process, and they wheeled out his dead body, and he's just like being like slaughtered. You're just like,
he calls him, if you. What is this? If you don't do the right thing, you'll become a failed adult like him or something.
He's an example. And that's like, I think it's the first time they see a proper dead body, isn't it? Yeah. So that sets the tone there, and then we go through this the school friend again.
I think his first name is Nobu.
Nobu, he starts like freaking out a bit and like questioning the teacher, and then the teacher goes, "Oh, nice for you to turn up, isn't it? Yeah, you skipped school, then you made sure you made the excursion trip, didn't you?"
Yeah, he's probably got his comeuppance in fairness. For stabbing him, and then
then he tries to attack him, and then that's when the teacher then like triggers his collar, and he's like freaking out, like, someone help me. Then everyone's like in survival mode, right?
So they're all pushing him away, aren't they? It's the first foreshadowing, right? It's the first bit of like you see when like, no, you're on your own, don't come near me,
exactly. And then obviously his friend wants to help him out, but he can't do anything because and then that's the first time we see like explosion of the collar, and it's pretty graphic too. And his like nexus explodes basically, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and it's blood spattered.
Very Tarantino-esque, right? You can see where he's sorry. Yeah, Tarantino's taken that. You
can see where they come from, that kind of that morbid, grim kind of style, and so we get established that they get released one by one, like was it girl 1, boy 1, wasn't it? Girl 2, boy 2. Bound by it's done like in a roll call, and each student is given a survival kit, so they get given a compass, a map, a bottle of water. And then the females are given like toiletries and stuff like that as well. Yeah,
and they're all given
then a random weapon as well.
They're given a random weapon. Now, this is where I say, as I said previously, you're talking about the game. I see the whole game, as like an allegory for late capitalism. Probably the capitalism we're probably in right now, but Japan was probably in at the time, as we've spoken about the collapse and the lack of opportunities for this youth. Everybody wants to, it was already competitive, right? It was ultra competitive at school, and all about getting a good job, a lifelong job, work hard, good family, good marriage. But your kind of job, I guess, defined you as a person, wasn't it? But we already know the work culture there, right? I guess normal working week's 40 hours, but if you're not doing at least 80, there's something wrong with you. You know what I mean? That's when I saw that second time around, like just the complete allegory where I think one of them's given a machine gun, one of them's given a
pot pan,
and it's like, I guess it's just like that metaphor for capitalism, right? We all dream of, we're all sold this fucking dream of becoming a millionaire. We all want to be millionaires. We all want to be successful. But the truth is, there's only so many opportunities, right?
Yeah.
But capitalism works because we all believe in the shit, right? To use an example, do we really want, say, we all talk about democracy and capitalism being the best, but do we really want China to become a capitalist democratic country? Not really.
Probably not, no.
Because we thrive on getting like the cheap product, and that cheap product's coming with poorer working conditions. And you know what I mean? It's this big lie we're all sold.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the downside of capitalism, right? As I've said before, I don't know what the answer is, to quote Winston Churchill, right? Well, I guess it's democracy, but democracy and capitalism are kind of hand in hand, aren't they?
Joint at the hip. Yeah.
Yeah. What does he say? Democracy is the worst form of government besides all others.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that really about sums it up, I think.
Yeah.
But I see this game particularly for the opportunities at the time. But that not everybody. All right, that's fine, but not everybody gets an equal start. And you can see it right there, with an Uzi for one and a fucking pop pound for another and a pair of binoculars. You know what I mean? It's yeah. I that second time I loved it. I love that.
I never thought of it that way before. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's a really good way of looking at it. Yeah, what I'm trying to say as well. So yeah, each student gets given their bag. We don't. Yeah, you said it could be an Uzi, could be a katana, could be who knows what it is.
Yeah.
And some of the weapons are really creative. Actually, I really liked them. Like one was like a body armor, one was a grenade, one was it like a
sickle?
Wasn't it? Yeah. And then one guy had a tracking device. So you could see the other students. Like it was very like. Yeah,
I don't know what he's going to do with that tracking device, but.
Well, then I guess if you're trying to survive, right, you're trying to be safe. So you hide away. But then it's kind of like, then you wait for someone else to die, then you take their weapon and then move on. But then so all the students they get thrust into the wilderness, on the island where we get told then too that every 4 times a day that'll be updated on who's died,
what the exclusion zones
are, and things like that basically going forward. So I guess we'll get right into like the action and stuff, but it really, that first 6-7 hours really shows like the human condition like perfectly. Like some people were using as opportunity to, assert their dominance and take out people, all the weak people left, right, and center. Others just panicked and committed suicide. Others decided to band together and work as a unit, and then another sector thought, no, we're not participating. We're going to go hide somewhere and just ride it out. And then if we die at the end, it is what it is. But we're not going to give them the satisfaction of participating in this grotesque game. Yeah,
again, it's like that whole it's society in microcosm.
It is,
I think you see it with the the guys the hackers who I think, well, there's people who are going to try and take down the system. As you say, there's people that just can't handle it. They're just going to maybe like a Kikomori or something. They're just going to hide away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Some people thrive. Some people just don't like it. Fucking get on with it. It's like There's so many cool. There's so many cool things that where you see. Look, we'll get into. We'll let the plot go. We'll get into it later. But you're right. It was cool.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating to see it, and so Nanarana and Naruko, he kind of like takes it upon himself to protect her, right? Like he wants to make sure that she is well looked after and taken care of. We find out he got the pot lid, right, and then she got binoculars or something as their weapons. So it's pretty useless in this world. And we're seeing as I said earlier, like some students commit suicide, some are already participating like with crossbow and stuff. And...
Well, there was that scene when the two, the boy and the girl, and I can't. I think Yamamoto and Okagawa, I believe they know. I wrote it down because you can see at the end.
Yeah,
these people died. That's where I saw it, but. They jumped to their deaths off of the rock face of the cliff. It actually reminded me of the second time around watching it. When you see the footage of the American soldiers on Okinawa, the Second World War, and the Okinawa civilians were
so panicked. Yeah,
they were so panicked, but they were so radicalized from propaganda from the Japanese that the Americans are obviously going to rape you and then
mutilate
you. That they were just jumping to their deaths. Like it I guess it was like the way the rocks looked and the way the camera was, and it just looked.
It probably was referencing that.
Yeah, it really it brought it home to me that second time around. It took me back to seeing that footage.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. No, it definitely invokes that. Well, then we get to that. I think it's it's established because the transfer students, we find out like their backstories a bit later. One's in there because he wants to avenge. Because we find out he's a previous winner, right?
Yes.
And the other one's in there just for the thrill of it. So that for human nature in a microcosm, right? Where he's just he's obviously a sadistic killer and just wants to use it as an excuse to, have fun with it. Yeah.
Maybe it's cathartic for him or something. I don't know. Yeah. It's a game.
It's a game, exactly. Yeah. And
life is a game.
Life is a game, exactly. Yeah. Oh, they said that during the movie, don't they? Yeah. But he got the rock face cliffs, and then the other he got like a fan or something, like a something really basic, and then they're all laughing at him, and he kind of just like these cool kids are trying to like band together and we'll stockpile our weapons here. Then he just tricks them and takes the guns and just mows them all down.
Yeah,
he's killed like 5 of them in one go. He's like, oh crap.
Yeah, how have you let that happen? Jesus Christ.
Never turn your back. Yeah,
yeah.
And I think what you said before. What's cool with that as well. Every time a student does die, it says this student 16B died, 38 remaining, or 40, 33 remaining, whatever it is. Yeah, it's cool. It lets you know as the viewer how many's to go and. What number of the student died. So it's really
and there's similarity. Obviously, the Hunger Games there was a heavily influence on the Hunger Games from this film, but people talk about Hunger Games of ripping this off. I personally, I don't think it did. In fact, Suzanne Collins, who made the Hunger Games, I don't believe actually.
She never heard of it,
She
apparently.
never heard of it. But if you're going to start saying this ripped off the Hunger Games, then you're going to have to say this ripped off The Long Walk by Stephen King or Lord of the Flies. You can't do that, right?
I mean, you can take you can always say maybe talk like an inspiration or an info, but yeah, it's completely different.
Yeah. The reason I bring up the Hunger Games, and fantastic film, we will do that down the line. But when someone dies in that, it's sort of music goes over and it's referencing the movie. Oh, this person's died, and the music plays. Where there's some sort of humanity to it. In this, it's just like dead. It's just written. It's cold. It's like that, almost like Threads.
It's like a sadistic. Yeah,
that Threads documentary style. Like 60 million people dead. It's
like
that
like
sort of
thing.
thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, all right.
Yeah. Move on. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it definitely is like that. And well, I said before, like we saw the transfer students start mowing the people down. Then we see also the other character, like the loner, that was Misuko, and she comes in and tries to like manipulate that girl, right? She's got the taser one, and she tries to lure her into a false sense of security, and then then suddenly out of nowhere she gets her sickle, right, and then slits her throat, and then watches her bleed out, and then it kind of establishes that the high school transfer guy and her are the two danger people of the game. They're the ones that are like taking no prisoners. They're going at it like full hammer and tongue, basically.
Yes, yeah. They're I wouldn't say thriving, but maybe they are, but they're, I guess it certainly establishes, he's just in it because he loves it, but as we find out later, it's almost a defense mechanism for her, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. It's like, kill to be killed. That's her mentality, right?
Yes, yeah.
And then, then we get later on to where it's kind of like is it next morning, I think, and then those two girls are on that cliff edge with one with the megaphone, and they're kind of...
I believe it's around the time where, Kusako and Yukiko, I think their names are, where you can hear they're shouting and like, stop killing each other.
Let's come to a compromise. We can try and work together as a team and figure a way out. And and then that random guy then suddenly attacks
Nanahara, right?
Nanahara, yeah. And then he's forced to defend himself, and he accidentally kills the guy with his guy has like an axe or something, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and hits him in the head, and then he dies, and then then Kawada comes in and then like observes it happening.
Yes.
Then he kind of like protects him in a way and just like lets it go on. Yeah, because sorry. Go
well, yeah. I guess he saves them, doesn't he? Is it Noriko and Nanahara? He saves the both of them, but that's where you see then the two girls, Kosaka and Yukiko, on the thing. Yeah, as you say, let's come to a compromise. Let's stop killing each other, and they've basically just given their position away. Yeah,
and then because they were going to go over and say hello to them, weren't they? And then he's like, get down, don't go over there. Yeah.
And this is what you mentioned. You brought up that point earlier, where I guess it's almost like society and microcosm. You have some people that will opt out, some people who will thrive. I find these two like they're really idyllic. It's like and then what? You don't want to do it. What do you? But then what?
It's a bit like the world would be a better place. We all just loved each other. That kind of mentality.
Yeah.
It's
But how?
It doesn't work in these conditions, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, they're just they're
they're easy lambs to the slaughter for the old high school transfer.
Just slaughters them. But there is a point that to me, when Nanahara sort of he wants to run, he wants to go back. Oh, they can't be dead, and he says like he's getting angry, he's shouting. He's like, why do you keep killing each other? Why are we doing this so easily, so quickly? We turn on each other, and I think like Kawada's almost like, well, he's sitting, he goes, "Fuck, mate, it is what it is." Basically, if you don't like it, just go and kill yourself. Then that was kind of I find that quite powerful in the sense, I guess in society we see these people, we brought it up, oh, it should be like this or it should be like that, but they're kind of profiting off the system. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, if you say all this shit, but if you, again, it kind of brings me back to, I think I mentioned last week or the week before, I think with Threads, you've got I guess Jeff Bezos at Amazon with the what's he got, the Earth Fund, when I think he's put $10 billion towards trying to reverse climate change, which is good, right? But it's like they're probably the biggest emitter of it. If you look at Amazon's carbon footprint, so
that offset it.
Yeah. So mate, if you really gave a shit, you would just cease operations at Amazon. But don't, that whole thing. You can't just profit off it too. That whole thing of like, so obviously you want to do it, but as long as it doesn't affect your bottom line, like it's
eating it too.
Yeah, it's that whole thing of like it evoked that stuff with me as well. When he's just a realist of it, he's like, "Oh, well, just fucking kill yourself then."
Yeah,
or get on with it.
Yeah, these are the cards being dealt to you. Go from there. Yeah, no, definitely. No. And then it's kind of then established. Then we find out that he was actually the previous winner of the Battle Royale a couple of years ago. I think it was, because he was like. I think he's in grade 11 or 12 now, I think. Yeah. So established then. And then you can kind of see he has like marks from the previous. He got scars on his face and stuff like that. So that makes sense. Like, oh yeah, that why happened that. And then we find out too that it was him and it was his mission to protect his girlfriend the whole time. And the two of them got right to the end, and their collars start blinking, which has been established that they're next about to explode. But then she attacks him, and then he instinctively then kills her because he's being attacked. But then when she dies, like she smiles at him. Yeah, it's kind of like she sacrificed herself so he could live and go on to win that game.
Yeah, that was like, so I certainly saw it like that. Because when I was just reading the plot before on Wikipedia, it mentioned that she committed suicide, but I'm sure she took the first shot. It's a bit like the fucking Han Solo Greedo thing in A New Hope.
Yeah, it is
who
like
fired first?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's,
but like she initiated the contact because like she
knew that he'd react.
She knew he wouldn't kill her like willingly, kind of thing.
Is it a bit like Death by Cop or something? Is it?
Yeah, a bit like that. It felt like
Trigger warning there, maybe. I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then it makes sense then why he kind of felt a protection for the two main characters, right? Yeah. So kind of like looking after them, ensuring their survival. So
yeah, and I think this is where we get to Kiriyama now. You start to see him going on a bit of a rampage. This is the other exchange student. One thing I do, he's spraying his Uzi, he's chasing a couple of people. Fucking never-ending bullets in that gun.
Oh, no, no. Very, very convenient, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, they had all the clips in the world.
he did. And then,
Well, they lose track of Kawada, don't they? And then they go on their own, and then they go to the beach house, isn't it? That's where they see where Kawada's got it all set up, right? He has like all the barriers, and he's cooking food because she got like an arm. She grazed her arm or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, they go into they're in the place with Kawada, aren't they? And then he's sort of nursing her back to health.
She passed out, and he carried her there. That's right. Yeah. And he's nursing her back to health, and then he said, "Oh, how do you know how to heal her?" And he's like, "Oh, my dad was a doctor." Yeah, we don't know if that's true or not, though. He just says it. Yeah,
I don't think it is because I think there's a point where he's like, "Oh, no, my dad drove a boat. Oh, my dad did this." So I think he's just taking the piss or something, you know?
Yeah. And because it was kind of, I find it too, when you said like that island was abandoned, and it's interesting too because he said, "Oh, like these medical equipments are expired, but they seem to be doing the job." Like all it kind of references that the island, right, being abandoned, like there's still like old supplies there.
Yeah. So
that was really cool, that kind of thing. And well, that's when we get to the point where the other exchange students like hunting people, and then he gets into that gunfight with the guy with the bulletproof vest.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the guy with the bulletproof vest takes the. It was kind of revealed, like he gets shot, he falls to the ground, and then it's revealed that his armor's there.
Oh, then he gets up and says, "Yo, yes, I have a bulletproof vest." He's like, "Oh, way to fucking tell everyone, dickhead."
Yeah, it was a bit like every one of those movies. Oh, I'm safe now. Yeah, let's go. Yeah,
and then automatically you just know what's coming.
Yeah. And then he's on the roof of the samurai sword, wasn't it? And just chops his head off. And then they make a noise in the house or something, and then he knows they're in there, just spraying the Uzi in there.
Yeah.
But the crazy part is then with a decapitated head, he pops a grenade.
That's pretty
mouth,
cool.
Yeah, and throws it in there. I was like, that was so sadistic. That It really shows the morbid aspect of the game.
He's just dehumanized this bloke. Yeah. He fucking loves it.
He uses a weapon too, like the head. Yeah. It's at the stage that Nanahara realizes that Noriko and Kawada are on one side of the room and he's on the other, and he kind of like uses himself as a distraction to get the other Japanese student taken away. And then he chases him on the cliff. And I mean, he was pretty accurate beforehand, but he got a bit clumsy with his accuracy when it came to our main character.
Dangerously close to question the plot.
I know. Yeah, I felt that a bit too at times. A bit like So suddenly he couldn't aim anymore. But then he runs into that basketball student or something.
He saves the fella with the tracker, doesn't he? He sees what's going on, and he comes over and saves him, doesn't he?
That's right. Yeah, he saves him. Yeah, and then unfortunately, we find out that he doesn't make it, and then
jumps into the water.
Jumps off the water into the water. So then he just goes into the wilderness. So you don't know what's happening then.
No.
But then then we cut to the next morning that he's actually been rescued by those a pack of girls that they're in the lighthouse.
Yep.
And then they've decided not to participate in the game. They're all going to try and work to a compromise or something. Yeah, it's a bit.
Well, you wonder what the plan is, right? What's the end game?
Yeah,
you're just going to get to the last half an hour. One of you's just going to
snap or something.
Yeah. Is that? Yeah, you're probably all thinking you're all going to do it, you know?
Yeah, and you're thinking too, like they're all like really close friends, weren't they? I think the group of them and stuff. Yeah, and they rescued him, and he's like in the bed. He's pretty weak and stuff, and then they decide to make him lunch or something, isn't it? And then he like asks her to, is there who's surviving out there? Any deaths? And he finds out like both his two friends are still alive, which is good. So he's happy about that. And yeah, that's when we get to the scene too where the girl that witnessed him accidentally kill that other classmate in the previous day. She gets a bit, she thought he's got this going to be like another killer basically, so she decides to poison her weapon of choice was a poison vial, like a was it chlorine oxide or something?
I know. We know it's poison because it says poison in big letters.
Yeah, it's good to know. Yeah, but yeah, she spikes his food, and one of the other girls just thinks, oh, it's a normal lunch, so she grabs the plate by mistake and then starts bleeding out and bursting blood comes out of her face, and then they all. Then it's funny. It
doesn't take much for the turn, does it?
Yeah, the instincts kick in. They also like accusing each other, become more paranoid and stuff like, "No, you did it. No, you did it." Blah blah blah. And then ironically, they all then they get into a gunfight with each other. And ironically, the girl that actually poisoned all the other students survives the slaughter. And then I think then it came to like a clarity for her, like, "Oh, actually, this is actually all my fault," kind of thing. And then she can't live with the guilt, and then just commit suicide off the top of the lighthouse. She's like, bloody hell, it's pretty morbid, yeah.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
It's a rough scene, that.
Yeah, definitely. But I think what I also think as well, when they're all like, it says so much about society too, when they've all turned on one another. It's almost like it's, I say it doesn't take much for it to all fall apart. In society, it's like, it's not about why it happened, it's about who's to blame.
Yeah.
Like that. It's that whole thing of like, it's just society in microcosm.
Oh, it is. It sums it up perfectly, yeah. And as you said too, like, was it, when it got to 30 minutes before the expiry date, was that going to happen anyway? Like, were they just delaying the inevitable? Like,
Yeah, probably.
Get out of it. I guess the other time we were talking about before, like the other students that they decided to go more like a bit of like an FU back to the government, where one of the students is like his uncle's like some revolutionary guy that's giving him like a bomb making kit or something, and he's got like the computers and the technology and the generators, and he's
proper 90s, early 2000s hacker, isn't he?
Oh yeah. All the clicking the keyboards fast and everything else, great.
And they all always had like some sort of animation that was like, their signature hacking system.
Yeah, it's like their avatar or something as well.
Like basketball or something, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I mean, I don't know how they got access to that and stuff, but on the island, but I'm not going to question the plot. Well, that's when he figures out too that they've got listening devices on the collar.
Yep.
So then he
why wouldn't you think that, by the way?
Yeah, I would automatically think that too, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway.
yeah, exactly, yeah. Who knows? But yeah, then he like types on the laptop to his other mates, we need to find, was it like, kerosene and sulfur and stuff. Yeah, and then, what that means? It means to make a bomb.
Yeah, which is initially, again, when I'm thinking, how would this stuff be on the island? And then I'll actually, again, when you realise it was abandoned, then it could have conceivably been there.
Yeah, or he could have had it in his own backpack too, because he said it was his uncle read him like how to make stuff as well.
Right, yeah.
I was reading too, apparently, that the actual book that they used in the film, like as the bomb making, was actually a real was from a real terrorist group that was big in Japan in the 1970s. Apparently,
really?
They bombed some buildings because they were very anti-nationalism. So
I think I know. Was that from the Red? I think they're called the United Red Army.
I think so.
I'm pretty sure, because they were like the radical leftist group.
Yeah.
That they were sort of formed from sort of two extremist factions. I think one of them was like into like Maoist policies, and one was into like Leninist and Karl Marx policies. Fucking sounds like a recipe for disaster, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the United Red Army.
Yeah, I think it was that. Yeah, one of their references, and like it tells about how people, how to act normal undercover in the society that it's in, and how to like infiltrate it and commit espionage and bombing tactics. Stuff. Yeah,
attention to detail.
It's like that. That was one of the references in it. Yeah, so I was like, that was really cool, little nod to that. Because you're thinking, as you said, like, well, how they know or what to do and access and stuff. But yeah. There you go. So then we find out. Yeah, then Shura, he manages to find Noriko and Kawada. They were in that like a kind of like undercover area or something. Like it looked like it was in like the rainforest,
like a shack or something.
In the rainforest. Yeah. And then we see the teacher come out of nowhere because like the Misuko comes out, about to kill them.
Yes.
Then she sees the teacher and runs away.
Yeah. I found that
a bit jarring, wasn't it? You only see that first time.
No, that wasn't a dream sequence, was it?
No.
Yeah, because the first time I watched it, I'm like, yeah, okay. And then he comes with the umbrella and he helps. Don't catch a cold or something, for.
Well, we find out later that was his favorite student, right?
Yeah. I just found it like, what? Why is he there? Like,
I found it
because then there's like a dream sequence later. You're like, what the fuck's going on here?
Yeah, a couple of flashbacks and stuff. Yeah. We'll go through the flashbacks a bit later, but yeah, that stuff was a bit. Yeah, it was a bit. Yeah, I said jarring and. But then you're like, okay, he gets the umbrella, then that scares him off, and he's basically like saying, "Oh, you're doing well, keep going." Yeah, the the juxtaposition of like trying to keep it like calling it a game, but then the people getting slaughtered left, right, and center and stuff. Like
Yeah.
And then we start seeing like other characters like die off. Like there's one where the girl from Kill Bill, like she she says that she's a virgin or something, and he's like, oh,
she's like going for a run or something.
Yeah, very. Yeah, I thought that was a flashback too. I thought like they were boyfriend and girlfriend beforehand in the flashback, but it ends up being no, they're running together. But yeah, it was very
odd.
Unless I misinterpreted or something, but yeah, he's kind of like saying, oh, we haven't got much longer to live. You don't want to die a virgin. Let's go for it.
Yeah, and he almost it's a bit sadistic. He almost like, oh, I could just force myself on you if I wanted. And
yeah. And another thing too, as you said, like society in a microcosm, like you'd assume under those conditions things like that would happen. Unfortunately,
yeah, you would. Yeah. I mean, it's not as if we only got to think the Nanking massacre and all that sort of thing. If we're talking about Japan.
Yeah, exactly. Like that. So, but then I think he was like more talking tough. But then he accidentally shoots her with the crossbow, wasn't it? And she goes her face, and then she like loses her shit, and then like chases after him.
Where he had the crossbow on her, he could have just pulled the trigger, really. But
he didn't. Anyway. Yeah, exactly. I think because he liked her or something, or he wanted to it was kind of a bit like that. But then he runs away, and then she just like stabs him to death like repeatedly, right?
Stabs him in the dick, doesn't she?
Oh, yes, right. Yeah.
That was fuck.
Like, that's gonna hurt. Yeah.
Oh. George Costanza, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah.
With the Hindenburg. With the laser.
Yeah.
Our first Seinfeld reference.
Oh, there we go. Well, I've got thrown one in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then unfortunately, then Masuko's in the background. Then she finishes her off. So.
Yeah. What I like, and it's at this point, I was watching it. Like, every single death, every single character gets a chance to sort of talk for a bit. Where they're like,
yeah, it is a bit like that.
They all get to say a few sentences and then they just die.
Very honourable, yeah.
They're all allowed that,
Yeah, they get their one last save, before all those, like it's all sudden, yeah. But then as the game, as the numbers start to dwindle out, we're starting to see the transfer student and Mitsuko really like killing all the people they can. Like I think there's one scene where they imply that Mitsuko slept with the two guys and then killed them after it because she gets her clothes back on again.
Yeah, and they're naked. It almost looks like a Roman bath or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit like that. Yeah, like she manipulated them. Once again, survival instincts kicking in for her. Yeah, definitely. And then I think one of her flashbacks was when we find out like that. I found that scene really creepy too with the flashback.
Yeah,
she's like a 6-7-year-old girl and she's coming home from school. Her mum's like drunk or past it, like on drugs or something. And you see like a lot of money on the table, and there's like creepy old guy going, "Oh, hello, Masuko, how are you?" Blah blah blah. Yeah. Mummy, we're gonna have some fun now, playtime.
Yeah.
And then they go upstairs, and she's a bit like, "No, I don't want to go near you." And then he has like a doll, and he goes, "Oh, this is your friend. This is like her name's Masuko too." Blah blah blah. And then it cuts to a scene where like all the clothes are off the doll. He goes, now it's your turn, and then you're just like, confronting. It's just so messed up.
It'd be quite triggering.
Oh, it would, yeah. And then out of this like pure desperation, she just pushes him and kills him down the stairs.
And this is the point where you can really empathize with a character.
Yeah, you can see. Yeah.
See, I watched it because it's on YouTube. So the first time I watched it was on YouTube, and it had this scene in it. But the quality, did you watch the YouTube one? Or?
I watched the YouTube one. Yeah.
The quality of it, I found a bit hard to watch. So I thought, I wonder if I can see a bit of a better quality. So I found actually on Prime there was a you could subscribe to some 7-day thing, free trial to watch it.
Okay, yeah.
So I watched it. So the quality was a bit better on there. So I just wanted to watch it a bit better quality the second time. But that scene wasn't in that one.
Yeah, the one on YouTube is director's cut.
Yeah, there we are. And I watched it. I thought I'm sure because the first time, obviously, as you say, when we're doing the research, you watch it to just watch it. And the second time, being a bit more analytical, I'm writing things down. And that scene, I remember that scene from the first one. It had a bit of an effect on me. It was actually quite confronting, but quite powerful in the sense that it was already established that. You can kind of empathize with Mitsuko's character now.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But it wasn't there, so I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
I could probably understand why, but
yeah. No, I think it kind of like really changed the narrative of her as a character when you see that. You're like, oh, okay. Not saying what she did was justified or anything, but you're kind of like, oh, it makes sense why she's that way inclined.
That's her response. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a survival mechanism.
It's a very human response.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Yeah. So then we're getting down to like the final. 8 or 9 students are left. A couple being killed off here and there, and we get to the point where the guys have they've created the bomb, got all the materials, they're all set to go, and they then disable the tracking system. Right, they hack into the mainframe of whatever of the government's monitoring systems. And because they do that, then the main teacher switches the power off for like a manual for full reset.
Katana, yeah.
And that means that 15 minutes before it can go back on again or something. So then it allows them to do what they can do in that period of time to like mess around and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it looks like they're going to start some sort of revolution. But who should throw a spanner in the works? But Kiriyama.
Okay, well,
he's never ending fucking.
Well, they thought it was the other guys and started waving to him.
Nanahara.
Yeah. And then
it's Kiriyama who's never ending fucking Uzi.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, man's got more lives than bloody cats as well. He's fucking going. Yeah,
goes all Blazkowicz on him.
He does. Yeah, a bit. Yeah. But then then he ruins the plans for the bomb going off, and then the last student he shoots the things sacrifice himself.
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah.
Use it or lose it. There's a nuclear allegory.
There we go. Yeah. And then the three other main characters come across and see that there's massive explosion, fire everywhere, and they see the transfer students standing there.
Kiriyama.
I'm gonna keep saying, I keep forgetting it.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because in the movie sometimes they use their first name, sometimes they use their last name, so it's kind of hard to keep track sometimes.
Yeah, it is like that. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a cultural thing.
Could be. Yeah.
In Japan,
sure.
But yeah.
Yeah. And because he's kind of looking like aimlessly, isn't he? He's walking around, and then he turns around.
Looks like a zombie or something.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, but we find out then the explosion's blinded him, so he can't see anything.
Yeah, and you see the black down on the eyes.
And a bit very morbid. But then Kawada tries to sneak up on him, but then he uses the shotgun and that triggers it. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And then
cock the shotgun. Yeah,
he had to do that, Yeah. And then he turns around, and starts shooting aimlessly with the Uzi, and he hits Kawada, doesn't he? Yeah, but then then Kawada eventually gets him and just blows him up. So. And he gets his justice finally, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
He detonates the collar, I think it is. Yeah, he shoots the collar and it explodes. So, but then after that scene, we fast forward to it's the final day of the game, and there's only 3 survivors left, and
quite conveniently so.
All the main characters, and then Kawada gives them a bit of a weird stare and saying, I was manipulating you guys a bit, blah blah blah. Yeah. I'm thinking, we've been deceived this whole time, haven't we?
Well, I mean, there was a part of me when I first watched it, I think, even Stevie Wonder could see that coming.
Yeah, a bit like that, wasn't it? Yeah. And then, but then again, I remember we hear gunshots off screen, so we don't see it. And then we cut to the scene too of the teacher, he's by himself doing those old Imperial Imperial Army.
Ich, ni, san, shi.
Doing the exercise movements, stretching your arms and legs and doing squats and stuff.
Well, I think there's a point where given Katana when you hear the last 2 shots and they die, the soldiers are like, let's go out and confirm the bodies. And Katana's like, no, don't bother. It's over. It's done. And it's sort of, you sit there, is so I think with Katana showing up earlier with the umbrella and stuff. And then it's almost like, is he in on it or something? That's where it's hard for me to.
Yeah.
Why did he do that? I just feel. I don't want to sit there and say it was to move the plot along, but
it has a little bit of elements of that though. Yeah. But yeah, and then Kawhi walks into the classroom and said, sees the teacher there. Congratulations, you won. Blah blah blah. And then out of nowhere, the 2 other main characters somehow survived, right? And they walk in.
Yeah, Nanahara and I think it's Nanahara and Nakagawa, isn't it?
Nakagawa, yeah. Yeah, so they survive, and he kind of reveals, he has that painting behind that covered up.
He unveils a painting, doesn't he?
Yeah. And it shows all the students in the classroom being massacred, and the only survivor then is Nakagawa, yeah. And the kind of thing, she's the only student he had an affinity with, right? And then even though she didn't really care for him at all, it's very
weird. You see that she has a dream of having an ice cream with him, doesn't she, at one stage? And it brings it up later in the epilogue as well. And I mean, did that happen? Or it's hard to be, is that why he had an affinity for her? He comes out with the.
He treats her like his own daughter in a way, right?
Yeah, I must admit, when I first watched it, I thought it was some sort of like the dream, but it was some almost like a, what's the word I'm looking, grooming sort of thing. That's what I first thought when I watched it.
Actually, yeah.
But yeah, no, the second time around, so I don't know. Yeah, it's the dream. I don't know if it's something that happened or what. It's this is one of the things I struggle with.
It's a bit ambiguous, isn't it? Yeah. But I'm assuming it did happen because it was it's kind of it's maybe 6 months removed from the stabbing, and because he always liked her and she was always a good student to him. So then he had an affinity for her, but not like in a grooming sense, but he's always like he substituted her as a teacher because we find out later too that he took on the phone talking to his daughter and he has no time for his daughter and she doesn't care about him and he uses her as as his substitute daughter or something.
Yeah, and I think there's almost a point where like I think all the soldiers leave and like, all right, you're coming. He's like, oh, there's no rush because he's almost got nothing to go home to.
It's kind of like this was his final it's like his final bit in life that he had to do to foresee or like monitor and watch over, and then he had no point of living anymore. So it was just like
it's almost like he's like a failed adult like the rest of them.
Yeah,
like everyone else we see in the story. You know,
like
all the adults have failed the kids, and I guess he's no different, really. You know,
exactly. Yeah, I think that's what he was trying to imply that.
But yeah, the 90s Japan, right? There was a lot of kids upset that their parents got to see the opportunities and they got to live the good life and all the opportunities were there. But when they come to that age, it wasn't. You know, it's like their parents had failed them.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? So I guess that's probably what he's trying to get at.
Yeah. And then at the end, it was I think the three of them will come to the realization saying, well, yeah, this was such a waste of time, and what was the point of this whole massacre, and we were completely against it. And then he kind of like he wants to commit suicide by cop again, right? So he says to her, now, all right, you off me now, kind of thing. And then he pulls out like that gun out of his pocket, and he's Shura's like natural instincts kick in, and then he just shoots him, just like protect because he's always protecting her, right?
Yeah.
And then it turns out it was actually a water pistol gun. It was like a last trick in a way.
Yeah.
Because then he gets like 6-7 bullets to him. Then suddenly he just gets up, goes to the couch, and answers the phone. It was a bit I thought a bit jarring. You're like, what?
Yeah. He gets shot. He gets back up, answers the phone, has a full on conversation. Fucking throws the phone, shoots the phone, eats some cookies, and dies.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that part threw me a bit. Yeah, I was like, oh, what?
But there's a lot of Tarantino, I feel, in that. You know how, like, one thing, if I think of, like, the movie Django or something, you know how, like, Django was really tight all the way through? You know how at the end of Django, where, like, it's that whole bombastic fucking fight scene where they're all these stupid deaths and that last 10 minutes where, like, I'm not going to say lets it down, but it almost breaks the fourth wall to me. There's a lot of Tarantino does that in a lot of his work.
Does,
and for what reason? For reasons unknown. But it's like this as well. I was like...
Yeah, it's like, I remember once upon a time in Hollywood, the ending was like that, because it got you really involved in it, and then it had some really stupid deaths at the end. You're like, oh, well, what was the point of the whole movie then?
That's like one of Tarantino's...
it's like his trademark in a way, isn't
it's
it?
His trademark, isn't it? It's his modus operandi, isn't it? You know, it's Kinji, does he get it from Kinji Fukasaku? I don't know. Maybe this is the only movie I've seen of Kinji Fukasaku, so maybe he does. You know?
Yeah, could have. Yeah, definitely. But then obviously, then he dies, and then the three remaining survivors, they get on the boat and they head off to the shores, right? And then we find out poor old Kawada's got he succumbed. He got some bullet wounds, and they're not healing. And
but importantly, he gets to have a big monologue before he does die.
Oh, that's good. There,
in to be consistent.
Yeah, because he was kind of like saying, they're kind of like talking like, oh, what are we going to do after? And then, because, we should hang out together kind of thing. He goes, oh, no, I don't want to be around you guys, like this, because it will remind me of this time or whatever kind of thing. It makes sense in the right way, right? But then he kind of like, then he has his monologue at the end when he's like slowly dying and talks about like, oh, I understand why she did what she did now with his girlfriend at the end of the last Battle Royale.
Yes.
That he was in, so... But then, then he gets the and then dies with a cigarette in his mouth, then we cut to a scene then after that where, ironically enough, now Nanahara and Noriko are considered wanted for murder. How could they? Disgraceful, Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so the government's now using them as like wanted fugitives, and they're running away from the law, and I think that it says like they snuck into her mum's place or something.
Well,
so
they were sleeping to say goodbye.
And grabbed the knife as well.
Yes. That Katana was stabbed with.
At the end there, and then they're wearing kind of like hats and trying to be like discreet as possible. And they go to Shibuya Station, and that kind of where it fades away, like cuts away, and then we head into the epilogues after that. But
we see the dream sequences, don't you? Which one dream sequence we've already mentioned of her having ice cream with Katana, and I think she mentions to him that she's kept the knife that he was stabbed with. And what does he say? What's an adult supposed to do?
Yeah, what am I just say? She was an adult to a kid for that. Like, it shows like and then it ends too with like the credits saying "keep running." I think it is.
Yes,
and it's like a message that it's meant to be interpreted however you want to take it. Like, as in, keep running from the authority or keep running from whatever it is. Yeah, I think another flashback scene too. I think what was nice was the basketball scene where they're all playing and they're all like getting along. They're all like one unit together. It kind of shows too that we've seen this massacre unfold on the island. They've all turned at each other, but then it's because they were put in that position, and not because they all hated each other. It was it was the conditions they were put into. So
humanity was
taken away. Yeah. But yeah, that wraps up the movie, and just going through it again. There's things we probably missed out on, but it invokes so many like themes and topics as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely a double watcher, and as I say, I enjoy. It's in doing this podcast. I don't think I would have ever watched it, but for doing this podcast, I'm grateful to that I can do it, and just to learn a little bit more about Japanese society and culture at the time.
Yeah,
because I guess Japanese culture on the surface, from the outside looking in, it almost looks like the perfect society, right?
It does, yeah.
Where everyone bows to you and
respect and
the
streets are clean.
The technology, and you walk into a convenience store and it's fucking got you see those videos on like, wow, what a place to live.
All the vending machines everywhere. And stuff,
but underneath the surface, I mean, with that perfection comes, it's not always it's pretty rotten underneath. It can be rotten underneath, right?
Yeah, I think too. Like, I think obviously now Japan's becoming like the #1 tourist destination in the world, and people are starting to like learn about the history more and explore the different films and stuff. Because it always felt like I guess Japan gets that thing where it's just about anime, right? That's what people think of initially. Yes. But now it's good that things like this and their actual proper films being recognised too, which is good. So and it's good. It's really good to explore that as well and see how it's had its fingerprints on other stuff throughout even the Western world as well.
Yeah, and we've already mentioned the Hunger Games. I think
the concept of Battle Royale became a video game genre.
Yes.
Yeah, like PUBG was obviously heavily inspired by. I actually think apparently the kitchen in the PUBG map, like the middle kitchen, is a reference to Battle Royale, where that scene where he's cooking the rice and healing them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, apparently it's in the game, and then obviously it spawned probably one of the biggest games of all time, which is Fortnite. So that's the exact same concept. So yeah, it's definitely got its fingerprints everywhere, and we've seen it through other it's inspired other TV shows and movies as well. So, and we said earlier, most notably Quentin Tarantino. So, but yeah, before we wrap up, anything else you want to add about this episode?
To be honest, no. I think we've pretty much covered it all. I'm excited to watch number 2, and hopefully we'll do that down the line. I think, as you say, number 2 was probably panned a little bit, wasn't it? But
yeah, from what I've read a bit about it, it's like it takes a couple years in the future, and Nanahara and Naruko are wanted terrorist fugitives, and then they create a resistance of like kids against the government, against adults. Sorry,
yeah.
So they form like a kid army and stuff, and it seems like a bit cool concept, but then a bit silly as well, like a bit. Going down the
does it explore society a bit more? Or?
I think so, but apparently it's not really well executed from what I can gather. But
yeah,
no, definitely we should check it out anyway because we've already established like the setup and everything, and I guess it's kind of unfortunate that he didn't get to finish it, have his final touch on it, the director. So
yeah. I mean, look, I'll tell you what, I really do want to read the book.
Even just
reading that introduction for this, I'm like, this is like
right by
as much as I like the movie. I love the depth in a book. We've already established a movie can never do what a book can, right?
No, definitely not.
It can never give the depth of a book. And that was cool, learning about the Greater Republic of East Asia, of how, it operated and, who the enemies were. And, that was cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. We might do that, as I said before, in a future episode or something like that. So
definitely.
Yeah, so I think that will do it for this week's episode. And what can the viewers expect next week's episode, Andrew?
We are going back to doing a short story, I believe. Is it The Machine Stops? Is that what it's called?
Yes, that's correct. It's called The Machine Stops by E.M. Forrester. So
yeah, what's noticeable? So you brought this up. You've never read this before, have you?
No, I haven't read it at all. No.
Which you were up, published in 1909.
Yeah,
crazy, right?
No, it's fascinating, and this could be considered maybe one of the first dystopians ever, produced. So around that time period. So
yeah, I'm seeing here. I think it might have been adapted into a movie or something, but I'm really excited about this one. So this should be...
Yeah, the short stories are really fun, aren't they? Yeah,
they really are, because I think it's easier to stay on target, right?
It is, definitely, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess that will wrap us up. And as always, guys, you can follow us on Instagram at dystopediapod, or shoot us an email at info@dystopediapodcast.com. And now we're on Tumblr, apparently, aren't we, Andrew?
We are on Tumblr, and that is at dystopediapod as well on there.
There we go. Like we're exploring, aren't we? Yeah.
We are. Never used Tumblr, but I'm kind of liking it.
All right. Feeling the vibe?
You really go down some rabbit holes, and I think might well be the place for us.
That'll be a nice niche place. That's great. Yeah. But yeah, once again, thanks on behalf of myself and Andrew, and we'll catch you next time, guys.
See you guys.